everyone. This is Jerry O'Donnell, and this is episode 3 on King David. Um, this is when David made a covenant with Jonathan. But anyway, I'll start reading. Um, this is 1 Samuel chapter 18. And it came to pass when he made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would not let him go no more home to his father's house. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him and gave it to David, and his garment, even to his sword and his bow and his girdle. And David went out wheresoever Saul and sent him, and behaved himself wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he accepted in the sight of all people, and all also in the sight of Saul's servants. It came to pass as they came when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistines, that the women came out of all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul, with tablets and with joy and with instruments and musket. And the women answered one to another as they played and said, Saul hath slain 1,000 and David 10,000. And Saul was very angry, and the saying displeased him, and he said, they have described unto David 10,000, and to me scribed but 1,000. And what can he have more but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day forward. See, doesn't it remind you of Joseph when all his brothers got envious because of a dream? Well, and it came to pass on the morrow that the evil spirit from God, notice it said the evil spirit from God came upon Saul. Whoa. And he prophesied in the midst of the house, and David played with his hand, and at other times, and there was a javelin in Saul's hand. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David, even to the wall with it. And David avoided out of its presence twice. So, man, 2 misses, right? And Saul was afraid of David, because the Lord was with him, and was departed from Saul. And therefore Saul removed from him and made him his captain over 1,000, and he went out and came in before the people. And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Wherefore, when Saul saw that he had behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David, because he went out and came in before them. And Saul said to David, Behold, my elder daughter, Merab, her with I give thee to wife, only to be a valiant for me, and fight the Lord's battles. For Saul said, Let my hand be upon him, and let the hand of the Philistines be upon him. And David said unto Saul, Who am I? And what is my life or my father's family in Israel, that I should be son-in-law to the king? But it came to pass at the time when Saul's daughter should have been given to David, that she was given unto Adriel, the Mahalamite, to wife. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. See, he's already plotting to destroy David. Wherefore Saul said to David, Thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in the one of the two. And Saul commanded his servants, saying, Commune with David secretly, and say, Behold, the king hath delighted in thee, and his servants love thee. Now therefore be the king's son-in-law. And Saul's servant spoke those words in the ears of David, and David said, Seemeth it to be to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man and lightly esteemed. And the servants of Saul told him, saying, Of this manner spake David. And Saul said, Thus shall you say to David, the king desires not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistine. And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. Wherefore David arose and went, and he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men, and brought forth the foreskins, and they gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, to wife. And Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. Wow. And Saul was yet the more afraid of David, and Saul became David's enemy continually. Jeez. Doesn't that speak volumes? And then the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass after they went forth that David behaved himself more wisely than all the other servants of Saul, so that his name was much set by. So this kind of concludes this episode of King David series, the third episode. But can you see how David, was hated by the existing government, which was the King Saul and his government, and David had to do right in the sight of the Lord continually. And the Saul, and you can see in this chapter that Jonathan, his heart was knit to David. And I just want to say this, and this is tough for me to say, but Jonathan loved King David. I mean, Jonathan loved King David, but he wasn't king yet, but he loved David. And here's what I want to say. If you know the story of Jonathan and what happens, and it'll be in another series probably down the road here a bit, tomorrow or the next day, but I have a son named Jonathan, and I love Jonathan, my son. I made him, his name is called Jonathan David. Isn't that weird? But my son, Jonathan David, I love him, right? But you know what? Jonathan, in this case, he could have been with David, but he couldn't leave the natural, even though he loved David with all his heart. And David's heart was one soul with Jonathan. And it shows how strong this covenant was. And I'll get into it later, because remember when Jonathan and Saul was killed, that David said, "Is there not anybody of Jonathan in Saul's house that I might show Hesed, loving kindness to? Isn't there anyone left of his house?" Right? Because he had made a covenant with him. And the word hasid is the word love. It's translated love, but in the Hebrew language, that word is hasid, and it's really, it doesn't mean like agape love. It means a covenant type of love. But anyway, and that's another story, and I hope God lets me do an episode for that, because man, that's powerful stuff. But anyway, until next time, I thank you for tuning in, and may God bless you.